All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Well, folks, we're about 2 days away from crowning a national champion for what has been one of the best college football seasons in quite a while. Now, this matchup between Michigan and Washington is generally reserved for the Rose Bowl, but it's going to be NRG Stadium in Houston on Monday night that is going to host this national championship game, a battle of unbeatens, a battle of teams that are set to be in the same conference come next year. And then on top of that, two teams that are actually set to face in October when Washington, is officially indoctrinated into the Big Ten. But you look at both of these teams, very compelling stories for both of these teams to this point. You look at the Washington Huskies, they have specialized in winning the close games throughout this entire season. In fact, they're the first team since the Pac 12 went to 12 members to go through a season undefeated overall, and of course, undefeated within the conference. Now, Michael Penix Jr., the Heisman finalist and the sensational quarterback for Washington, what is he going to be able to do against this vaunted Michigan defense? Now, the Wolverines are familiar with Mr. Penix due to the fact that he began his collegiate career at Indiana. But if you look at him now, he was a good quarterback at Indiana. He's a great college quarterback now. That guy can sling that football around. He has elusiveness, and his confidence is out of this world right now. The Washington Huskies are loaded on offense, but I will say this: it comes down to the health of Dylan Johnson, their running back. Now, Johnson has limped through the second half of the season with a bad foot injury. We saw it flare up again late in Washington's Sugar Bowl win over Texas on New Year's night. And of course, this is a quick turnaround for the national championship game. I guarantee you Johnson's not 100%. He wasn't 100% going into that contest against Texas, and he got beat up. But then you look at the trenches. This Washington offensive line going up against this Michigan front seven. That's one thing that we have seen in recent games. We have seen this Michigan defensive front impose their will on their opponents. They did it against Penn State late in the season. They did it against Maryland. They did it against Ohio State. And then, of course, last week in the semis against Alabama, we saw the Wolverines once again impose their will. But I will say this is not going to be the best wide receiver that Michigan has faced all season long. It will be the best wide receiver core that they are going to face all season long because you look at the combination of Roman Dunze, Jalen Polk, and Jalen McMillan. They know how to put pressure on an opposing secondary. And this is going to be very interesting, a very interesting chess match that is going to take place Monday night in Houston with this Michigan secondary against these Washington wide receivers. Now, Michigan is going to bring some pressure on Michael Penix Jr. Michael Penix Jr. knows how to move around in that pocket. What Michigan's going to have to do is they're going to have to take a page from what Arizona State did to Washington earlier this season. Arizona State kept this Washington offense off balance because they blitzed from different directions, and it really slowed them down. Washington only scored 15 points in that game. Nonetheless, they were still able to win. But I'm looking at this Washington offense, and I think they're going to be up for the challenge in this one. Also, I'm looking at this Washington defense because we've talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. They have that bend but don't break attitude, and it's worked so far this season. But what Washington's going to have to do defensively, they're going to have to get the Wolverines off the field early and often. I say that because Michigan, with their running game with Blake Corum, they're not going away. They're going to keep leaning on you, leaning on you, and leaning on you. And those 2 and 3 yard runs in the first quarter become 5 yard runs in the second quarter, become 7 yard runs in the third quarter. And then the next thing you know, Blake Corum's breaking the game open. A very physical running back, a very physical offensive line. We saw what they did to Alabama late in that confident in that conference contest, in the Rose Bowl. And nonetheless, I think this Huskies front with the likes of Braylon Trice, they're going to have their work cut out for them, if you will, in this contest. Now, we saw this Michigan offense, most notably J.J. McCarthy, get off to the slow start in the Rose Bowl. And of course, he got bailed out, okay, when Caleb Downs stepped out of bounds on that first throw. But nonetheless, I think Michigan's offense wants to start off a little bit sharper, a little bit crisper. And speaking of being crisper, Michigan definitely has to get better on special teams. We saw too many miscues, fumbles, and missed field goals that they were able to avoid and survive against Alabama. Washington is a better offensively right now than Alabama is. And if you give the Huskies those opportunities with Michael Penix and company, they're going to go out there and make you pay for it. But like I said, Blake Corum is the heart and soul of this Michigan football team. And like I said, I think the Wolverines are going to lean on him early and often. If Blake Corum gets 20 to 25 touches in this game, whether it be as a running back or a receiver, this Washington defense could be in for a long night. Now, it's going to be very interesting because Michigan has the top defense in the nation, and no team all season long has been able. I take that back. Only two teams have scored more than 20 points against this Wolverines defense this year. You got Maryland and you got Ohio State. Will Washington be the third? And I'll tell you like this: for Washington to win this game, they're going to have to be the third team to get 20 points or more on this vaunted Michigan defense. Now, if Washington decides to come up and stack the box to force Michigan to throw the football, will wide receiver Roman Wilson be up for the challenge? He is their go-to guy in the passing game, and I think this is going to be a chess match back and forth between the head coaches, Kalen DeBoer for Washington, and of course Jim Harbaugh for Michigan. Some of the keys again: this Michigan front has to keep this Washington offense off balance. They have to keep them off schedule, most notably Michael Penix. You have to bring the pressure. They're going to have to pin their ears back and come after them. But it's a scenario where if you're this Michigan secondary, you can't put all of your focus on Roman Dunze because if you do, you got Jalen Polk and you got Jalen McMillan. So I'm looking at this contest right here. I think this is going to be a back and forth affair. It comes down to the defenses first and foremost. Which defense is going to limit the scoring opportunities? And I say that which offense is going to have to settle for field goals because if Michigan can keep this Washington offense to having to settle for field goals, that's a win. And for Washington, what they have to do offensively, I think they need to keep this Michigan offense off the field because Washington's going to look to score fast with their passing game. Michigan is going to want to grind it out, but you can't win the time of possession if you're on the sideline. Like I said, this is going to be a phenomenal game to end a terrific college football season. All four of these teams, I really felt coming into this tournament, had a legitimate chance of winning. This thing can go either way. Now, we look at this contest, and of course, Michigan is going to be slightly favored on Monday night when they take the field in Houston. You're looking at it right now, and the Wolverines, I do believe, are about a 4-point favorite. But at the end of the day, you look at Washington, they've been playing the underdog card for a while now because they were the underdog in the Sugar Bowl against Texas. They were a huge underdog in the Pac-12 championship game against an Oregon team that they beat. And I guarantee you the Huskies are like, they're not overlooking that. They're actually a 4.5-point underdog as we speak. Nonetheless, like I said, only two teams have gotten north of 20 on Michigan this season. I think Washington is going to be the third. And I think the Huskies get it done in winning the national championship by the score of 34-28. So, folks, that is my pick for this Monday night's national championship game. A terrific end to this college football playoff, the last 4-team college football playoff. This time around next year, we're going to be talking about the 12-team college football playoff as a lot of changes continue to come to the world of college football. But nonetheless, that is going to wrap this up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.